Thank you, member. Recognizing the member for Peace River North.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and it's a pleasure to stand in the House today to speak to one of the many important facets of our education system. British Columbia is blessed with one of the highest quality education systems in not only Canada, North America, but indeed around the world. And the success that we British Columbians enjoy would not be possible without the tens of thousands of educators, support staff, administrators, trustees, and of course, ministry staff, who help to ensure that our education institutions and the staff have the capacity and resources that they need to care for and continue to educate the hundreds of thousands of children across the province every day. But of course, like all education systems, ours is not without challenge, some of which have been increased in scope by the pandemic. In an education system that is striving to accommodate more than 600,000 students, it is impossible to create a system that can meet the special learning needs and accommodate for every religious and cultural requirement for every child in British Columbia. This, as many of us know, is where the independent distributed learning, or better known as IDL, plays a crucial role in British Columbia education. IDL supports a significant portion of students with special learning needs, and the independent system has two of the largest special needs high schools in the province. Many IDL programs offer a wide range of faith-based and pedagogical perspectives, including Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Islamic, Indigenous, Montessori, and Waldorf systems, just to name a few. Many students who experience bullying in public institutions often find a program to meet their educational needs, as well as a sense of community in our IDL programs and institutions. One of the greatest benefits of IDL is that the enrollment is not confined by the traditional boundaries of schools and school districts. And in rural ridings like mine, where students can find themselves hundreds, possibly even thousands of kilometers away from a school that best meets their learning needs, this flexibility has been invaluable for countless children and families across the province. Among many things, COVID has emphasized the need for online learning resources for our students and children, especially those who may reside in households with immunocompromised families or children who are immunocompromised themselves. We cannot understate the value of in-person learning, but we must also recognize that there are many students within this province where in-person learning presents more challenges than benefits to their education and their social well-being. We are at a time when our province needs to recognize and expand online learning resources to increase the number of students and families who depend on them. With this in mind, you can understand the shock and concern that many families have recently learned that there are some proposed reforms coming to the boundaries for IDL institutions. It's my understanding that starting in 2022-23 school year, public and independent school online authorities can only operate within their districts unless granted special permission by the ministry to cross-enroll from another district or authority. This will mean that students not currently residing within school district boundaries will no longer be able to attend their chosen schools via online learning. This goes against the wishes of many parents and students who rely on the programs and resources offered by IDL schools, which cater to their very specific learning needs. If a special agreement isn't granted to the IDL schools, the impact on students will be significant. The proposed changes could significantly limit the scope of IDL institutions available to them, the students, and the families who rely on them. Furthermore, BC families feel that there has not been appropriate level of notification, nor the opportunity for public engagement, and the consultation has not been engaged. Many of these changes have blindsided students and families, as have been made apparent by the overwhelming number of letters that I've received in my constituency office. I know others on this side have received many letters, and I'm sure all members of this House have received as well. Honourable Speaker, as a former school teacher myself, I'm a firm believer that a good education is the greatest gift that we can bestow upon a child. It's the greatest investment that we, as a province, can make in our collective future. The changes made to our education system should always be in the spirit of adding options and flexibility to encompass more students and families, and to show them that they will always have access to learning that meets their very specific needs. When hundreds and even thousands of families are raising their voice in public outcry because they believe that the proposed changes will do the exact opposite, and in fact run the risk of pushing their children through the cracks, it is a signal that the government must take a step back and rethink its approach. I implore government to heed the calls of BC families and educators. There is still time for appropriate public consultation before these new measures come into place. And there is time for us to change direction, to allow the students to look forward to a brighter future, both through the current challenges and beyond. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, member. Recognizing the member, I believe, for Victoria Beacon Hill. Yes, Victoria Beacon Hill. Thank you, member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad to rise today to speak to the statement by the member for Peace River North. Like many areas of our life, from employment and how we do our jobs to social connections and the way we engage in the economy, how kids go to school and learn was deeply affected, particularly by the first year of the pandemic. In 2020, this meant shifting the majority of learning to remote learning, while keeping schools open for children of frontline workers and students needing the additional supports in the classroom. In 2021, while BC was one of a few provinces to keep schools open all year, youth in secondary school saw changes to their schedules, hours of education, and more. And, like many aspects of our lives, some of the changes and pivots revealed as many opportunities for positive change as challenges. There are kids and youth who, thrown into a new way of learning, found that the shift actually worked for them and was a fit for their learning needs. And as my colleague notes, this form of learning is not necessary just in a pandemic, nor for students seeking alternative ways of rising to their full potential. Rural and remote students and families also benefit from, and in some cases need access to virtual learning opportunities. That is why it has never been more important, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that equity and quality are the cornerstones of online learning in BC. Indeed, next year, students and families will see modernization and improvements to the distributed learning model, now more clearly and appropriately called online learning. While these changes to online delivery have their origins in a 2018-2019 review and online learning working group, the benefit of modernization and the possibilities it opens up for students was made clear over the last year and a half. Modernization aimed at flexibility for students to help meet their personal learning needs, from generalized to specialized programs, from full online enrollment to blended learning opportunities, whether that's logging on into specialized courses like languages or connecting to classes that meet their unique learning needs. Flexibility and equal access, including access to and connections with educators. It's about equity and excellence, Mr. Speaker. Of course, these changes must work for families, parents, and students. And I know our government and Minister Whiteside are committed to this, consulting with advocate groups such as Autism BC and BC Ed Access in order to hear directly from the people who know students with diverse learning needs best. And the Ministry of Education staff are working with the BC Confederation of Parent Advisory Councils, Federation of Independent Schools, Métis Nation BC, and the First Nation Education Steering Committee to hear updates, to share updates and listen to feedback. A focus on quality and equity, ensuring that all students in both public and independent online schools are well supported in their programs, that teachers have the tools and resources they need, and that fragmentation is reduced. This means sharing best practices and supporting educators. It means quality assurances, teachers able to access and share high-quality online learning resources and courses through online platforms, supporting teachers and supporting students. This is our government's commitment for both online learning and traditional brick-and-mortar schools. And Mr. Speaker, public education is a public good. We've made record investments in our public education system, more funding for students with learning needs, more funding for Indigenous learners, and more funding for mental health supports in schools. And who benefits from public education? We all do. Neighborhoods and communities and employers and businesses and the public sector, from one end of the province to the other. Public education and the access to the excellence it provides is a question of equity and ensuring that everyone in our province is equipped to learn, make connections, build skills, and create the life they want in our province. I'm proud to speak in response to this statement, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for Peace River North for raising it and allowing us to discuss it. I know it matters to students, teachers, parents, and families. Thank you.
Thank you, member. Member for Peace River North.
Thanks, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member for Victoria Beacon Hill for her comments. I want to use my closing comments to reflect on the current situation in our province's education system and the context in which we need to consider the changes that we push for that will have a lasting impact on our children's immediate future as well as the long-term future. And Honourable Speaker, it goes without saying, undoubtedly things have changed as we view and carry out many aspects of our life due to COVID-19 now and as we move forward. And the member for Victoria Beacon Hill also commented about many of these changes that we've seen over the past year, which many have been good and will last probably for many years to come as we move forward. COVID has made us reevaluate how we live, how we work, and how we learn. Our online and virtual resources are now invaluable tools in our daily lives, and I would argue even more so for our children. And it's pretty obvious when I even try and help my own kids, it's very obvious how frustrated they get with me when I'm trying to utilize Google this or chat that or all these other tools now that are part of kids' regular education regimes. We cannot underestimate the importance, though, to the value of in-class learning for our children's own growth and development, but we do also need to recognize that our education system needs a space for online learning resources. And I often think we have taken a step in the wrong direction as this province in recent years has moved us to a point of where we're going. I remember when I was serving as the opposition education critic, I was receiving similar emails and correspondence from parents and families that were in IDL who were concerned about some cuts to programs that were received in the midst of the first wave of the pandemic at a time when online learning resources and online learning was so important. My friend and colleague, the member for Fraser-Nicola, who has taken on the critic since then, has done a great job advocating for students, parents and educators across the province. But we're back here again, it seems, doing this again. As you can see, Honourable Speaker, this is why it doesn't feel like we are taking steps forward. It seems a bit stagnant. Our online tools and resources are invaluable to our children's education. They keep our children safe, our families informed, and ensure transparency in our school systems, and they help forward and advance our children's learning, which is really what this is all about. So I hope we can move forward by enacting policies and changes that will give our children and families the many tools that they will need to be successful now and in tomorrow. And I really appreciate the Minister of Education sitting here today listening to this statement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.